As the story starts, we see a normal night in the city, but no one could have anticipated it was going to turn bloody soon. The calm skies suddenly turned dark with a message displayed in bold letters: emergency maintenance due to the occurrence of a serious error. The city streets were now crowded with giant bloodthirsty robots. Everyone stared at them in horror as another flashcard got displayed stating that applicable areas will be erased. With the speed of a thunderbolt, the robots started killing every single human. Soon, the whole city was in ruins. Aiden held his wounded sister, screaming out her name in helplessness. He tried his best so she could regain her consciousness. However, the robots reached near them and identified Aiden, the blacksmith NPC, a bug. Alice mustered enough strength to beg her brother to run away. Before Aiden could understand anything, the robot struck them with full force. Aiden gathered whatever energy was left in him and dragged himself to find Alice under the rubble. He froze as he saw Alice crumbling to pieces. He cried in anguish and questioned why was all this happening to them. He begged the robots to stop this killing spree. As the brother-sister cried on their fate in each other's arms, Aiden apologized to Alice for not being able to protect her. Before Alice slipped into oblivion, she requested her brother to stay alive. With those last words, she vanished and left her hair tie as a reminder with Aiden. As Aiden lay there mourning the loss of his beloved sister, the robots started closing in on him. At a distance stood their commander, the inspector administrator, with his eyes fixated on Aiden. With his eyes still on him, he said that the bug has been located and that his threat level was low. Aiden had been identified as one of the error sources, and as a potentially disastrous virus for the system. Hence, the Inspector Administrator initiated NPC Aiden's permanent deletion. Aiden stood there, barely in his senses, listening to his death sentence. With all the chaos and destruction around him, all he could think was why things turned out to be this way, even though all that he wanted was to live a normal life. He could not fathom the reason of why they were being deleted. In a world threatened by monsters, one day the system chose certain players to hunt the monsters. All other people devoted themselves to these heroes. After all, it was thanks to them that they could escape from the threat of monsters. However, the peace did not last long. As the time passed, the players started treating other people like toys as if it was natural to do so. Even when players committed evil deeds, the people could not do anything. This was because, as per the rules set by the system moderator, anyone going against the players would be flagged as a bug and over the next update and maintenance, deleted permanently. Aiden never cared about moderators, or players, or about anything else, except to survive with his sister. Their lives did not allow them the luxury to think about anything else. All that they could do was to schedule maintenances to survive. Once the maintenance began, everything stopped, but for some reason, Alice and Aiden could still move on. They never thought about and honestly didn't care about the reason. Aiden was a blacksmith and he simply worked hard to survive. Aiden struck as best as he could to enhance the sword, but with a huge clamp, a flashcard appeared stating that the enhancement had failed and the equipment will be destroyed. Aiden looked at the sword in horror as it broke into several pieces. His heart thumped loudly, and before he could realize, he felt a bellowing pain as a fist pounded on his cheek. As he fell to the ground, he heard the angry voice of the player accusing him for destroying his tool even though it had a 50% success rate. The player could not believe that Aiden failed at the enhancement and blew his precious sword. The player exclaimed how mad he was as he stomped Aiden with his feet and shouted that he should just die. After some time, the player's accomplice intervened, saying that if he didn't stop beating him, Aiden would die. The player said that he didn't care if Aiden died. After all, he was only an NPC. The system would bring him back even if he got killed. Saying that, the player and his accomplice left for the next region. As Aiden lay there quivering in pain, he heard the player say that he would have killed Aiden if it weren't for the karma penalty. Aiden, now completely covered in bruises, pulled himself up from the floor. Suddenly, Alice called on him from behind the boxes. She asked Aiden if he was okay and said that she wanted to help him. Aiden was startled to see Alice there and asked her not to come downstairs as it was dangerous. Alice cleaned her brother's face with her handkerchief in complete disbelief of the player's action. Aiden laughed off the situation and consoled Alice, saying that players are like this only. Alice promised that she would grow up quickly and help him out. No matter how hard the work got or how harshly the players treated him, it didn't matter as long as he could protect his little sister. With all the memories coming back to him, Aiden lay there with his death sentence been served by the silver-crested administrator. Aiden's grief turned into rage for this system which had separated him from his beloved little sister. He stared into the eyes on administrator and screamed that they had no right to delete them. He screamed that he would destroy this whole system, no matter what. With his words still ringing in his ears, he found himself being pulled across a bright beam of light. He could see that everything around him was disappearing. A hand appeared from nowhere and tightly clutched at Aiden's head. Everything went black and Aiden thought this was the end for him. Suddenly, a flashcard appeared with the message error. System moderator's deletion command has been cancelled. With this, Aiden saw a bright yellow light approaching him. He heard a voice commanding him to carry out his role, as the time had come. Aiden came back to his senses in a flash and could not believe his eyes. He was standing back in the ruins of his city. He could not comprehend how he got back there completely healed. As he was recalling of what had just transpired, a flashcard appeared in front of him. Aiden was totally confused as this had never happened before. The flashcard read that Aiden had acquired moderator powers and had been promoted to moderator level 1. Also, the skill of commands had been unlocked for Aiden. The update command was now available for him. Standing in the ruins, surrounded by flashcards with the messages, Aiden could only question what all this was. Much time had passed since then, and it was a peaceful sunny morning with scattered clouds above the Edeline castle deep inside the Bansan forest. The marketplace was abuzz with commoners and players alike. One player searched his flashcard for new notifications or updates in anguish, only to find none. Suddenly he noticed a huge crowd gathered near one of the shops. He could hear the sound of metal clamping coming from there. He approached the crowd and asked why was everyone gathered there. One of them explained that there was an upgrade event going on. The blacksmith of that shop had claimed to increase the upgrade probability of weapons by just using gold and no other material. The player exclaimed that this event was not mentioned in the notifications, to which the man replied that it could be a hidden event. There stood Aiden pounding on a sword with full concentration. The crowd cheered as a flashcard appeared, confirming the upgrade and increased ability of the sword Aiden was forging. Many from the crowd rushed towards Aiden to get their weapons upgraded. One of the players pushed everyone aside and reached near Aiden, only to realize it was the same NPC he had tortured a few days back. In full ego, he commanded Aiden to upgrade a dozen of his swords. Many commoners were angry at this player for cutting the line and going ahead of them. Other commoners calmed them down and warned that if they said anything against the player, it would only lead to an increase in their warnings on their scorecards. After all, those players were famous for being resellers in this area. Everyone knew they had a bad temper and would always look for problems. Everyone hoped that it was only a matter of time till they fell into the penalty ground. The player tried to confirm with his accomplice if Aiden was the same guy they had beat up the other day. His accomplice responded that Aiden was indeed the NPC from a recently erased village. He said that Aiden was the leader and looks like he somehow survived. They joked about his young sister's absence and said she must have been erased since she was useless. Aiden heard all this and held his hammer tightly, trying to control his anger at their casual discussion of his agony. Aiden said that the probability of success of his swords was merely 25% and asked the player if he would like to proceed. The player responded he would like to go ahead with the process. He thought to himself that he doesn't go for any transactions which are not beneficial. It would be good even if 1 out of the 4 weapons would succeed. His accomplice questioned his decision since all of his money was on those swords. The player scolded him saying that it was all okay, and even if the upgrade didn't succeed, he would pay him tenfold the amount. His words echoed in the ears of Aiden and made him very angry. He struck the sword with his full might, saying to himself that now only he will be deciding the probabilities, and not this system. One by one, all the swords shattered with a flashcard displaying the message of failed upgrade and that the tools will be destroyed. The player stood frozen, shaking at the sight of his broken swords, to which Aiden casually replied with a smile that his hand slipped. The commoners in the crowd had a great laugh at the whole situation and felt satisfied that justice has at last been served. The accomplice held the player by his collar and asked for the tenfold money that he had promised him. The player tried to avert the blame onto Aiden and accused him of breaking the swords deliberately to take revenge from them. The accomplice and the player got into a huge fight after this. The crowd forced them both out of the area since everyone else wanted to get their tools upgraded by Aiden. Aiden worked hard throughout the day and finally retired into a lodge for the night. He had earned a good amount of money which would last him for quite a while. Now he looked at his scorecard and wondered if he should claim his reward. He recalled the day when he was revived. It was from then onwards that he had started seeing these writings that he couldn't recognize previously. It showed him his status and that an update event had been unlocked. The scorecard asked him to enter the command key. Aiden realized that this was the key of a system administrator and wondered how he got the ability to use it. He could not digest the fact that he was just like the inspector administrator. He was wondering what he should do, and suddenly a quest card appeared before him. Aiden will have to find the Easter egg for which the location was marked. Aiden wondered if finding the Easter egg was like a treasure hunt. Aiden sighed, realizing that there was no need to get flustered since there was no other way, and in order to live he would have to clear the quest. He said to himself that it was a good thing that the location specified was not far away from where he was. As he strolled outside resolving to leave early morning for the quest, he suddenly got reminded of the face of his dying sister. He resented himself, saying that he doesn't care about anything other than getting his revenge on the administrator. Aiden decided to let the system use him, and so he would be using them as well in order to achieve his goal. He clicked the button on the quest card and obtained administrator privileges. Aiden also got promoted to admin level 2, and the update unlock had been unlocked for him. Through this he could now open locked scenes. Aiden decided to test them later. Aiden wondered if being an admin at this stage was okay or not. After all, anyone could tell that he was weak. He was sure that he cannot beat even a novice player as of now. Aiden thought to himself that he would surely be registered as a bug when the next inspection begins and end up getting deleted. The next morning, Aiden found himself all geared up at the gates of a huge dungeon. He was sure that he had reached the correct location, but he knew that such places were commonly used by players to level up, and hence he had never thought to end up being in one. As he stood puzzled on the steps leading to dungeon gates, a shadow was lurked behind him in the forest. He was trying his best to control his fear. He said to himself he would not be able to achieve anything by getting scared. And besides, the inspector administrator had far worse monstrous robots with him when he raided his city. Convincing himself that this place is nothing compared to that night, he pushed the doors open. As he took a step inside, a flashcard appeared with an error warning stating that his admission was restricted and that the recommended level would be 80 to enter the dungeon. However, the flashcard almost immediately got replaced with another one giving Aiden the option to enter the dungeon using administrator privilege. It all seemed very unusual, but Aiden mustered enough courage to enter the dungeon. And what could be expected? It was full of monsters, howling and growling at every nook and corner of the dungeon. With his heart pounding from fear, Aiden said all his prayers. As he walked further, he found himself on an ignited milestone, very similar to the light he had seen when he was about to be deleted. With no other choice in sight, he kept following the milestone amidst the menacing voices of monsters coming from all around the dark passages. To his surprise, it was as if all those monsters could not see him, given that he was walking on that milestone, and he felt like he's outside from the world. As he was contemplating the fact that this is no ordinary path, Aiden arrived at a huge door labeled as number 1. He tried hard to push it open, but all in vain. He said he can't possibly go back after coming this far in search of the Easter egg. So, he pulled out his scorecard and thought if he should try out a skill he had recently learned. He clicked on the update unlock, and with a bright blue light, the doors flung wide open. Aiden walks inside and is almost blinded by the rays of light being emitted by something kept on a pedestal across the royal stairs. It was the Easter egg he had been looking for. Delighted at the sight of it, Aiden approached the stairs to grab it. He was startled by a huge thump as a monster came by, attacking him. Aiden froze on the spot and couldn't believe there could be a monster at this place. Before Aiden could react, the monster struck at him with a sword. Aiden could barely save himself from the blows of the monster's sword. Aiden realized that he would have to fight. After all, he had nothing to lose anyway. Aiden pulled out his sword and for the first time was able to block the sword strike from the monster. He realized he cannot just keep defending himself. He would have to attack in order to save himself. But the monster was way too fast and it struck hard on Aiden's shoulder. Though Aiden was writhing with pain, he took the opportunity of the monster being in close range and sliced off its head. Aiden was certain that this would be enough, but to his horror, he saw the insides of the monster were completely empty. Cutting off the head had no effect on the monster, and it punched Aiden with full force. Completely covered in bruises and his blood, Aiden could only stare as the monster put its head back on its body. Aiden lay helplessly on the ground, and his spirit was further broken as he recalled his inability to save Alice that night. Aiden could recall everything that transpired night as if it was happening right now. He could picture his beloved sister disappearing bit by bit, turning to him slowly and requesting him to stay alive. Those words of Alice echoed through his mind, and he found a new strength coming back in his arms. He realized that if he could only live, he would win. With the power he gained from the last words of his dying sister, Aiden was back on his feet. He charged relentlessly towards the monster and did what he had done his entire life as a blacksmith: struck the sword with his hammer. To his surprise, the sword shattered in 100 pieces and a flashcard appeared stating the same words when he had previously broken the swords while mending them. Enhancement failed. The equipment will be destroyed. Aiden realized that the monster is seen as a tool and hence can be destroyed. He struck the monster's arm with his hammer, dismantling it. The same flashcard appeared again, and it was confirmed that this is the way to destroy the monster completely. Without missing a single second, Aiden started striking the monster's body and made it fall to the ground. He started pounding on the monster as he would on any sword. and with each shattered piece of the monster a flashcard appeared bearing the same message as before. Aiden was completely exhausted as he sat catching his breath and celebrating his win. His scorecard appeared, informing that he had completed the quest. Suddenly the ball of light shining on the pedestal started coming towards Aiden, and in a flash got absorbed into him. His scorecard appeared again with the message that he had obtained admin level 3 of administrator privileges, and that update unlock has been unlocked. Aiden was a little disheartened to realize that he went through all this trouble only to gain a new skill. Completely exhausted and barely having the strength to walk, Aiden pulled his legs towards the door and out into the forest. With his blood dripping through his shoulder, Aiden was in a really bad condition. He lost his consciousness and fell to the ground with no energy to move any further. Little did he know that the shadow lurking in the woods was waiting for him to come out of the dungeon. It approached towards Aiden and took off the cloak. It was a beautiful girl with sharp blue eyes and long blue hair. She smirked at the sight of Aiden completely passed out below her feet. It was very quiet inside the hall where Aiden had just fought for his life, until a squeaking sound appeared. A digital eyeball was scanning the havoc wreaked in the hall. It scanned the remains of the monster and confirmed the loss of the dungeon keeper. It scanned the blood of Aiden and confirmed the low risk level of the bug Aiden. It then created a bug report prompting a quick action for what had transpired. Outside the dungeon, Aiden was slowly coming back to his senses. He woke up to the sounds of clicking notifications on a scorecard. A hand pulled up his hand towards the scorecard, and Aiden was completely taken aback at the sight of the blue-haired girl. He pulled himself back and asked her who she was. She greeted him casually and replied that her name was Arya. Aiden sat on the ground, shocked at realizing that she was a player. He quickly tried to check her status, but she insisted there was no need to be afraid as she was not a bad person. Aiden was dumbfounded to see that her warning level was even higher than the maximum limit. He concluded that this woman is dangerous, and decided to stay away from her. Aiden asked her what she wanted, to which she casually replied that he's being mean. Arya told Aiden that she had healed him and even used a small amount of her recovery medicine on him. Aiden realized that she's being truthful as he had almost healed completely. Arya said that she didn't want anything from Aiden. It was just that she had never seen anyone like him and found him interesting. Aiden could not understand what she was talking about. Suddenly a flashcard appeared declaring the arrival of a new quest. Aiden realized that luckily, he was the only one who was able to see that quest window. Arya stood there patiently waiting for Aiden's response. Aiden stood up, resolving not to get involved in any way with this suspicious player. Aiden thanked Arya for helping him out and took his leave. He was going further into the forest, but Arya kept following him and kept sending him innumerable friend requests. Aiden got irritated and asked Arya not to bother him and to leave him alone. Arya said she should follow Aiden to help him out if he faints again. She said her friendship will prove to be helpful in a difficult situation. Aiden kept on rejecting all of her friend requests and asked her to leave again. Arya smiled and said that she has been right along as Aiden was now completely surrounded by trouble. A ferocious wolf-like monster came from behind and tried to attack Aiden. Aiden quickly pulled out his sword from the inventory and killed the beast. However, there was a whole pack of wolves growling at Aiden. Aiden thought they must have smelled his blood and hence came by to attack him. Arya casually offered to help him out with the monsters, which Aiden denied. He thought to himself that he had to catch these monsters in order to complete the new quest anyway, so be it. This was the best way for him to get stronger before the next inspection begins. The monsters and Aiden charged towards each other. On the other hand, the eyeball had already prepared its report and informed its masters of the missing Easter egg. The master was a little taken aback by the fact that such a thing was possible. After all, the dungeon keeper had a special body made of immortality characteristics which made it theoretically impossible to be killed or destroyed. He thought of the whole situation to be strange and decided to see through it himself before the inspector notices it. The system operator, Lloyd, stood up and made his way to assess the whole situation along with his digital eyeballs. Completely unaware of all this, here Aiden fought with these bloodthirsty wolves deep in the woods. Lloyd was sure that there must have been a bug which led to this whole situation. So that is it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe for more. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.